The sun was setting over the wide desert, painting the sky with orange and gold. The air was still hot, but the shadows of the dunes stretched long, giving a strange calm to the land. Omar stood on the sand, his eyes fixed on the rocky hill ahead. For years he had dreamed of this moment. As an archaeologist, he had spent his life digging through ruins, searching for lost secrets. But this time, he felt something different. The land itself seemed to whisper to him, telling him there was something hidden here, waiting to be found. Behind him, the camp was quiet. His small team worked slowly, brushing sand away from the stone surface they had uncovered earlier that day. The slab looked unlike any other they had seen in the desert. It was too smooth, too perfect. While most tomb entrances were covered with carved blocks, this one shone faintly under the fading light, as if it were polished metal. Nadia, his closest friend and a historian, knelt by the slab with her notebook. Her dark hair moved with the wind as she copied the strange markings. They were like hieroglyphs, but sharper, almost mechanical in style. She frowned and said, "Omar, these symbols are not like the ones we see in temples. They look older, maybe even different from human hands." Omar walked closer and placed his hand on the slab. The surface was cold, colder than the air around them. For a moment he felt a vibration beneath his palm, like a heartbeat buried in stone. He pulled his hand back quickly, his eyes wide. "This is it," he whispered. "This is what we've been searching for." The others gathered around. Sammy, the youngest member of the team, looked nervous. He was not a scholar like the rest but had joined as a guide. "Are you sure this is safe?" he asked. "Every story says cursed tombs are hidden for a reason." Nadia gave him a calm smile. "Stories are only stories. But knowledge is real, and this could change everything we know." As the sky grew darker, Omar decided they would continue their work by torchlight. They lit lanterns and set them along the stone, the glow making the strange markings dance across the surface. Step by step, they brushed away more sand, until the full entrance was clear. It was not sealed with simple blocks, but with massive plates of a dull silver metal. Strange bolts and lines ran across them, like the design of a machine. Sammy shook his head in disbelief. How could this exist thousands of years ago? The pharaohs built with stone, not this. Omar felt his heart race. Unless the pharaohs knew more than we thought. He pressed his hand against the metal again, and once more the vibration returned. The air around them grew heavier, as if the ground itself was holding its breath. For a moment, the sand under their feet trembled. The lantern flames flickered. Nadia stepped back and said softly, "It's reacting to you." The team exchanged worried glances, but Omar's eyes burned with determination. "This is not a curse," he said firmly. "This is an invitation." That night, the desert did not sleep. A low hum came from beneath the earth, too faint to be natural. It was not the sound of wind or shifting sand. It was steady, almost like the pulse of a giant machine. The camels at the edge of camp grew restless, pulling against their ropes. Sammy whispered that they should leave, but Omar refused. He sat by the strange entrance all night, watching the stars overhead, listening to the hum below. In the early morning, when the sun had not yet risen, Nadia joined him. She sat quietly beside him for a while before speaking. "You really believe this is more than a tomb, don't you?" "Yes," Omar said without looking away from the slab. "This is not just a place of death. It feels alive. The pharaoh buried here was not an ordinary ruler. He wanted the secret to stay hidden until the right time." Nadia studied him. "And you think now is the right time?" Omar finally turned to her. His eyes were tired but full of resolve. "Humanity has always risen higher when faced with mysteries. If this place holds knowledge, then it belongs to all of us. We have to see what is inside." The rest of the team gathered when the sun rose, and together they tried to find a way to open the sealed door. They searched the edges of the metal plates, looking for levers or hidden locks, but there were none. The surface was seamless, as if molded in a single piece. Frustration grew among them until Nadia noticed a small depression shaped like a handprint at the center of the slab. She pointed to it and said, "Omar, this is meant for you." Omar hesitated. The memory of the strange vibration came back to him. But he knew this was why he was here. Slowly, he placed his palm against the print. At once, the ground shook. The metal plates glowed with lines of light, spreading outward like veins. The hum grew louder until it filled the air, pressing against their ears. Sammy cried out and stepped back, but Omar kept his hand steady. The plates began to move, sliding apart with a sound like grinding stone, though no dust fell. Beyond them was darkness, deep and endless. The team stood frozen, staring into the passage that had been revealed. It sloped downward, far beneath the desert. The walls were smooth, not carved by hand, but shaped by something far more advanced. The air that flowed out was cold and heavy, carrying with it a strange metallic scent. Nadia whispered, "This is no tomb. This is something else." Omar felt the weight of centuries pressing on his shoulders, but he also felt pride. Humanity had always dared to step into the unknown, and now it was his turn. He raised a lantern, its light barely touching the walls of the passage. Then he looked at his team and said, "We go inside. The Pharaoh left this for us to find, and we cannot turn back now." The others hesitated, but the fire in Omar's voice pushed them forward. Together, they stepped into the darkness, unaware that the desert above them would never be the same again. The lantern light flickered as Omar led the way into the hidden passage. The air grew cooler the deeper they went, but it was not the damp coolness of old stone. It was sharp, metallic, almost like the inside of a machine. Their footsteps echoed softly on the smooth floor, and the sound seemed to travel far into the darkness. Nadia stayed close behind Omar, her eyes studying every wall. The tunnel was unlike anything she had ever seen. The walls curved slightly, as though carved with perfect precision. Thin grooves ran along the surface, glowing faintly, like veins of light guiding them forward. She touched one of the lines and felt warmth beneath her fingertips. "This is not human work," she whispered. Sammy, carrying another lantern, looked nervous. "Then what is it? A trap? Some trick of the ancients?" Omar shook his head. "It is too advanced to be a trick. Look at these markings. They are not decorations. They serve a purpose. This place was built with knowledge far beyond what we thought the pharaohs had." The group walked carefully, their eyes adjusting to the strange glow on the walls. Every few steps, the tunnel seemed to hum faintly, as if the chamber itself was alive and aware of their presence. After some distance, they reached a sharp turn that opened into a wide hall. It was tall and round, the ceiling lost in shadow. The walls were lined with carvings that looked like constellations, stars arranged in patterns that stretched across the dome. Nadia raised her lantern higher, and the light revealed something astonishing. Some of the stars were tiny crystals embedded in the wall, glowing faintly with their own light. Sammy gasped. "These are maps of the sky. But not just Egypt's sky. Look, these stars are placed in ways I do not recognize." Nadia nodded, excitement in her voice. "Yes. These are not just our constellations. They are maps of other places. Whoever built this chamber wanted us to know about the stars beyond our world." Omar stood in silence, his heart beating fast. He had always believed the pharaohs were more than kings. Now he had proof. This chamber was not a simple burial place. It was a record of something far greater. As they moved forward, they came to another passage, but this one was guarded. At the entrance stood two massive figures carved from dark stone. They were shaped like men but with faces hidden beneath helmets. Their arms were crossed over their chests, and each held a staff that reached the ceiling. The figures seemed alive in the dim light, their shadows stretching across the walls. Sammy stepped back quickly. We should not pass. These are guardians. Omar studied them carefully. Guardians, yes. But not alive. They are symbols, warnings perhaps. Still, we must continue. Knowledge waits beyond. Nadia pointed to the base of the statues. Strange lines ran across them, similar to the glowing grooves in the tunnel. She bent down to examine them and saw faint light pulsing, like blood through veins. Her eyes widened. Omar, these are not just statues. They are machines. The group froze. The silence of the chamber grew heavy. Omar's lantern flickered, casting moving shadows over the stone faces. Then, without warning, a low vibration filled the hall. The staffs of the guardians glowed faintly. The statues shifted slightly, dust falling from their shoulders. Sammy cried out in fear, but Omar raised his hand. Stay calm. They are testing us. The guardians lowered their staffs slowly, blocking the passage. A deep rumble filled the air, and strange symbols lit up across the wall between them. Nadia read the glowing marks, her voice trembling. It says, only the worthy may pass. Prove courage, prove unity, prove wisdom. Omar stepped forward. His heart pounded, but he kept his voice steady. Then we must prove it. This chamber is built to test those who enter. We cannot turn back now. The guardians remained still, staffs glowing with sharp light. Then the floor beneath them shifted. Stone slabs moved apart, revealing 3 paths leading deeper underground. Each path was marked with a symbol glowing above it, a lion, a flame, and an open eye. Nadia spoke softly. These must be the trials. Courage, unity, wisdom. Omar nodded. And we must face them. The group stood in silence for a moment, fear mixing with determination. Finally, Omar pointed to the path marked by the lion. Courage comes first. We will go together. They entered the lion's path, their lanterns casting long shadows. The tunnel narrowed, pressing close around them. The walls here were rougher, carved with images of battles and warriors. The deeper they went, the louder the sound of rushing wind became, though there was no breeze. Suddenly, the floor beneath them shook. The tunnel widened into a chamber filled with tall columns. From the ceiling, stones began to fall, crashing down around them. The air roared with sound. Sammy shouted, we must run. But Omar raised his hand. No. Courage is not about running. It is about standing firm. He stepped into the center of the chamber and held his lantern high. The falling stones slowed, then stopped, hanging in the air above them. The roar faded, replaced by silence. The stones returned to the ceiling, as if time had reversed. The group stood in shock. Nadia whispered, it was a test. And you passed. The chamber shifted, opening a new passage at the far end. A soft golden light glowed there, inviting them forward. Omar turned to his team. The Pharaoh built this chamber to test the hearts of those who entered. If we face the next trials with the same resolve, we will learn his secret. They stepped into the new passage, the golden light guiding them deeper. The air grew colder, and the hum of the chamber returned, stronger than before. Nadia felt her chest tighten. The next trial will not be so simple. Omar nodded. But we are ready. The tunnel twisted and turned, carrying them far into the depths. The further they went, the more the walls changed. They no longer looked like stone. They looked like metal, smooth and shining in the lantern light. Strange lines ran along the walls, pulsing with blue and green light, like circuits in a machine. Sammy's voice trembled. This is not a tomb at all. This is something else. Something built with power we cannot understand. Omar placed his hand on the glowing wall and felt the same vibration as before. "It is a gift," he said softly. "The pharaoh left this for us, for humanity. And we will uncover it." At last, the passage opened into another great hall. In the center stood a massive object covered in dust, its shape unlike anything they had ever seen. It was not a coffin, not a throne, but something vast, made of crystal and metal. Its surface glowed faintly, as if it were alive. Nadia stepped forward, her eyes wide with wonder. "This is no burial chamber. This is a machine. And it has been waiting for us." The hall was silent except for the echo of their footsteps. The strange object stood in the center, half buried under layers of dust, but even through the years it still gave off a faint glow. Its shape was like a giant coffin, yet its surface was made of crystal and metal fused together. The glowing lines that ran across it looked alive, like veins filled with light. Omar stared at it with awe. This must be the heart of the chamber. The pharaoh's resting place. Nadia walked closer, her lantern shining across the strange surface. The light reflected in colors that shifted like water. She placed her hand gently on the crystal. It was cold at first, but then warmth spread beneath her fingers, like something inside was responding to her touch. She pulled her hand back quickly, her eyes wide. "It is not dead," she whispered. "It is sleeping." Sammy shook his head in fear. "No. This is wrong. No man could build this. We should not wake whatever is inside." But Omar felt differently. His heart beat faster, not from fear but from hope. For years, people had laughed at his belief that the pharaohs were more than kings. Now here was proof, standing before him. He stepped closer, brushing away the dust with his hands. Strange symbols appeared on the surface, glowing faintly. They were not hieroglyphs but something older, sharper, as though carved with fire. Nadia bent down to study the symbols. "I cannot read them all, but they tell a story. It speaks of a ruler who came from the sky. A guardian of knowledge and power. He was placed here to guide mankind until his time was over. Then he returned to the stars, leaving behind this vessel." Omar placed his palm against the largest symbol. The lines of light across the sarcophagus flared brighter, spreading outward like fire racing across dry land. The whole hall came alive. The walls glowed, the floor vibrated, and the air grew heavy with energy. Sammy shouted, "Omar, stop!" But it was too late. The crystal surface pulsed with light, and a deep sound filled the chamber. It was not like any voice they had ever heard. It was not spoken with words but carried through the air as vibrations that entered their minds. "Children of Earth," the voice said, echoing in their heads. "You have come at last." The team froze, staring at the glowing sarcophagus. Nadia held her breath, her body trembling. "It speaks," she whispered. The voice continued. "Long have I slept beneath the sands, waiting for the day when mankind would be ready. You have opened the gate, and now you shall learn." The glow around the sarcophagus grew brighter, and then, slowly, the crystal surface became transparent. Inside, a figure rested. It looked human at first glance, but its features were too perfect, too still. The body was wrapped in fine bands of gold and silver that glimmered in the light. Its skin, though pale, had not aged. Its eyes were closed, but a faint glow shone beneath the eyelids. Sammy took a step back, fear plain on his face. "That is no man. That is something else." Nadia leaned forward, whispering in awe. "It is the pharaoh. But not as history told us. He was more than a king. He was a being from beyond." The voice returned, filling the hall again. "I am not your enemy. I was placed here to guide you, to guard this world from what waits in the dark. When my time ended, I returned to the earth to sleep, until your kind was strong enough to face the truth." Omar could barely breathe. His dream was real. Humanity was not alone, and the pharaohs had been chosen guardians. He stepped closer and spoke aloud, his voice shaking. "Why now? Why reveal yourself to us?" The light inside the sarcophagus pulsed. "Because the stars are stirring once more. The danger I once held back is returning. If mankind is to survive, you must rise together. The secrets of this chamber are yours to claim, if you prove worthy." The walls of the hall shifted, as if the whole chamber was alive. Hidden doors slid open along the sides, revealing narrow passages glowing with blue light. The sound of moving gears echoed in the distance, though no one had touched anything. Nadia turned in a slow circle, her lantern trembling in her hand. "The chamber is changing. It is responding to us." The voice spoke again, deeper and heavier this time. "You must choose. Knowledge, courage, and unity will be tested. If you succeed, humanity will inherit the legacy of the pharaoh. If you fail, the chamber will close forever." The glow inside the sarcophagus dimmed slightly, and the crystal became cloudy again. The voice faded, leaving behind only the soft hum of the chamber. Silence filled the hall. The group stood frozen, their minds racing. Finally, Sammy broke the silence. "We should leave. This is too much. We are only people. How can we face trials made for gods?" Nadia shook her head firmly. "No. This is why we are here. Do you not understand? This chamber is not a tomb. It is a message. Humanity was meant to find it. If we turn back now, we betray that trust." Omar placed his hand on the crystal surface one last time. The faint vibration returned, warm and steady. He looked at his team with determined eyes. "We have no choice. The pharaoh trusted mankind to carry this burden. And we are here, now, standing in his chamber. We will face the trials." The others hesitated, but Omar's voice carried weight. Sammy lowered his eyes, still afraid but unwilling to abandon the group. "Then lead the way," he said softly. Nadia smiled faintly, though her eyes still shone with fear. "If the pharaoh chose humanity, then we must prove him right." Together, they turned toward the newly opened passages. 3 paths stretched before them, each glowing with a faint symbol above the entrance, a circle of fire, a pair of hands clasped together, and an open eye. Omar studied them carefully. The trials. Wisdom, unity, and courage. He spoke of them. The team exchanged glances. Each knew the weight of the choice before them. These trials would not be simple puzzles. They were tests created by something far beyond their understanding. Still, Omar felt no doubt. He raised his lantern and pointed to the path marked by the open eye. "Wisdom first. If we are to lead humanity, we must understand." The group stepped forward, their shadows stretching long behind them. The glowing grooves in the walls pulsed faster, as though the chamber itself was alive with anticipation. As they entered the new passage, the sarcophagus behind them dimmed, the glow fading into stillness once more. But the hum in the walls followed them, steady and deep, like the beating of a great hidden heart. The pharaoh was not dead. He was waiting. The passage of the open eye stretched before them, glowing faintly with blue light that seemed to flow like rivers along the walls. The air was colder here, and each step echoed strangely, as if the chamber itself was listening. Omar led the way, holding his lantern high, though the glow of the walls was almost enough to light the path. Nadia studied the glowing lines carefully. They were not random patterns but shapes, repeating over and over. She traced them with her fingers and whispered, "These are not decorations. They are writing. But it is not Egyptian. It is something older, something beyond human language." Sammy walked close behind her, uneasy. "If it is not human, then how can we understand it?" Before Omar could answer, the walls ahead lit up brighter, and a vision formed in the air, like a painting made of light. The 3 of them stopped in awe. The vision showed a desert, but not as they knew it. The sky was filled with strange ships, their shapes like sharp wings of silver. The ground shook as beams of light struck from the sky, burning the land. At the center of it all stood a tall figure wrapped in golden bands, his eyes glowing like fire. He raised a staff, and a wave of energy spread across the desert, shielding the land from destruction. The image shifted. The golden figure walked among people dressed in the simple clothes of early Egypt. He taught them, showed them how to build, how to write, how to farm. They bowed before him, not just as a king but as a guide. Then the vision faded, and the wall was dark again. Nadia pressed a hand to her chest, her voice shaking. That was the pharaoh. He was not just a ruler. He was a guardian. He came from the stars to protect and teach. Omar's face was pale, but his eyes burned with excitement. This is the truth hidden for thousands of years. The pharaohs were chosen to guide mankind. They were more than human. They were protectors. Sami shook his head. If that is true, why hide it? Why bury it beneath the sand? The chamber answered for them. The wall lit again, showing a new vision. This time, the golden figure was wounded. He stood on a battlefield of fire and smoke, ships burning in the sky above him. Strange creatures moved in the shadows, tall and fierce, their eyes glowing red. The pharaoh raised his staff again, pushing them back, but his body weakened. Finally, he fell, and his people carried him into the chamber. The vision ended. Silence filled the passage. Nadia's eyes shone with tears. He gave his life to protect this world. And when his body failed, he returned here to rest, leaving this chamber as a message for us. Omar stepped closer to the wall, his voice low but steady. He trusted that humanity would one day be ready to continue his fight. That is why we are here now. They walked on, and the passage opened into another hall, this one shaped like a circle. At its center was a raised platform with a glowing sphere floating above it. The sphere pulsed with light, and lines of energy stretched from it to the walls, making the whole chamber glow. As they stepped inside, the sphere flared brighter. A voice filled the room, the same voice they had heard from the sarcophagus. You have seen the truth. I was called Pharaoh by your ancestors, but my home is among the stars. I was sent here as a guardian, to guide your kind as you grew. My enemies followed me, and I fought them with all I had. But my time ended, and so I left this chamber behind. Humanity must now decide if it will rise or fall. The voice was calm but heavy with meaning. Nadia bowed her head. Why us? Why humanity? We are small compared to the power you showed. The voice answered, strong and clear. Because you are more than you believe. Where others seek only power, your kind seeks hope. Where others conquer, your kind learns and builds. That is why you were chosen. That is why I gave my life to protect this world. The sphere shifted, showing images of human history, pyramids rising, ships sailing across seas, towers climbing into the sky. Then it showed modern cities, filled with lights and machines. Humanity had grown far from the desert, yet still carried the spirit of curiosity and struggle. Omar stepped forward, his heart pounding. And now? What are we to do with this knowledge? The sphere pulsed brighter. The trials of this chamber will give you the key. Pass them, and you will hold the knowledge to defend your world when the stars darken again. Sami whispered, almost to himself, so it is true. The danger is not gone. It will return. The voice softened. Yes. They will come again. The same shadows that I faced will rise once more. But this time, I will not be here. Humanity must stand on its own. The light of the sphere dimmed slowly, leaving the hall in silence once more. For a long moment, none of them spoke. The truth was heavier than anything they had imagined. The pharaoh was not only a king but a guardian from the stars. The chamber was not a tomb but a warning. Humanity's survival would depend on what they chose now. Nadia finally broke the silence. This changes everything. History, faith, knowledge. If the world knew this truth, it would shake every belief. Omar turned to her, his voice steady. And maybe that is what the world needs. To see the truth and prepare. We cannot keep this hidden forever. Sami frowned, still afraid. But knowledge can be dangerous. What if people use it for greed instead of defense? Omar looked back at the glowing walls. That is why we must prove ourselves worthy. These trials are not just about us. They are about humanity. If we succeed, we will show that mankind is ready for the future. If we fail, the chamber will close, and we may never have another chance. The group stood together, the weight of the choice pressing on them. But in Omar's heart, there was no doubt. This was not the end of their journey. It was the beginning. The chamber's walls glowed one last time, guiding them to another path. Ahead lay the next trial. Omar lifted his lantern, his voice calm but strong. The Pharaoh gave his life for us. Now we must give our strength for humanity. We will face whatever lies ahead. Nadia nodded, her fear turning into determination. Sami sighed deeply but followed, knowing he could not walk away now. The three of them stepped forward, the light guiding their path. Behind them, the sphere faded, but the hum of the chamber remained, steady and deep, like the heartbeat of something greater than themselves. The new passage curved downward, its walls glowing with soft blue light that pulsed like the beat of a heart. Omar walked first, his lantern raised, though the glow of the chamber almost made it unnecessary. Nadia and Sami followed close behind, both silent, their minds heavy with the truth they had just seen. The air was cooler now, sharper, as if each breath carried a strange weight. The hum of the chamber was stronger, not just beneath their feet but inside their chests. It felt as if the place was alive, watching them, judging them with every step. At last the tunnel widened into a vast circular hall. The ceiling rose so high that their lanterns could not touch it. The floor was polished like a mirror, reflecting their own faces back at them. At the far end of the hall stood three archways, each glowing with a different color: red, green, and gold. Above the arches, glowing symbols appeared, a lion above the red, two hands joined above the green, and an open eye above the gold. Nadia pointed upward, her voice soft. The trials. Courage, unity, wisdom. The Pharaoh spoke of them. Omar studied the arches, then looked back at his team. If we wish to claim the Pharaoh's gift, we must pass these tests. We cannot fail. Sami's face was pale, his hands trembling slightly. And if we do fail? Omar's voice was steady. Then the chamber will close, and humanity will lose its chance. We cannot allow that. They stood in silence for a moment, then Omar turned toward the red arch. Courage must come first. Without courage, there is no hope. The three stepped through the arch, and at once the chamber shifted. The hall behind them vanished, replaced by a vast desert under a dark sky. Wind howled, carrying sand that stung their faces. The stars above were strange, twisted into shapes they did not know. Sami shielded his eyes. This is not real. It cannot be. Nadia shook her head. It is a trial. An illusion made to test us. But it feels real. Before them, the sand began to rise, forming a massive shape. A creature emerged, taller than any man, with skin like black stone and eyes that glowed red. It roared, and the ground shook beneath their feet. Omar felt fear claw at his chest, but he forced himself to step forward. This is the test of courage. We cannot run. The beast swung its massive arm, and the ground cracked. Dust filled the air. Sami cried out, but Omar stood firm, raising his lantern high. The light from the lantern flared brighter than before, glowing like fire. The beast roared again, but the light struck its chest, forcing it back. Omar shouted over the wind, "Courage is not about fighting. It is about standing when fear demands you run." He held the lantern higher, and the beast dissolved into dust, the desert fading with it. Suddenly, they were back in the hall, standing before the three arches. The red arch dimmed, its symbol fading away. The trial of courage was complete. Nadia touched Omar's arm, her voice full of wonder. "You faced it without fear." Omar shook his head. "I was afraid. But I did not run. That is what the chamber wanted." Now only two arches remained. Omar turned toward the green one, marked with the symbol of joined hands. "Unity. We face it together." They stepped through, and the hall shifted once more. This time, they stood in a great maze of stone walls, stretching endlessly in every direction. The air was thick and heavy, and their lanterns barely lit more than a few steps ahead. Sammy groaned. "How can we pass this? We will never find the way out." As they walked forward, the walls shifted behind them, closing passages, opening new ones. The maze was alive, changing with every step. Soon the three of them were separated, each standing alone in narrow corridors. Nadia called out, her voice echoing. "Omar? Sammy? Can you hear me?" Her voice carried, but the walls seemed to twist the sound, making it faint. She pressed her hands against the stone, trying to find a way. Fear pressed at her heart, but she remembered the meaning of the trial. Unity. She closed her eyes and shouted, "We must move together. We must trust each other's voices." Omar heard her and answered, his voice strong. "Follow my voice. Do not fear the walls. They move only to test us. If we hold to each other, the path will open." Sammy trembled in his corner of the maze, fear threatening to overwhelm him. But then he heard Omar and Nadia calling, and for the first time, he shouted back. "I will not be silent. I am here." Slowly, the three followed each other's voices, step by step, until the walls shifted once more, and they came together in the center of the maze. As soon as their hands touched, the maze dissolved like smoke. They were back in the hall. The green arch dimmed, its symbol fading. Nadia smiled with relief. "Unity. We found each other. That was the key." Omar nodded. "Alone we are lost. Together we move forward." Only one arch remained now, the gold one marked with the open eye. Omar raised his lantern. "Wisdom. This is the final trial." They stepped through, and the hall shifted again. This time, they stood in a vast library, filled with towering shelves of stone tablets and scrolls. The air was calm, but a heavy silence pressed on them. At the far end of the library stood a pedestal with two glowing crystals, one red, one blue. Between them was a voice, calm and deep. "You may take only one. The red holds the knowledge of power machines that can shape the stars. The blue holds the knowledge of balance, wisdom to guide your kind in harmony. Choose wisely. You cannot have both." Nadia's eyes shone as she stepped closer. "This is the trial. Knowledge is dangerous. Which path will humanity take?" Sammy looked at the red crystal. "Power. With power we can protect ourselves." Nadia shook her head. "But power without wisdom destroys. We must choose balance." The two turned to Omar, waiting for his choice. He looked at both crystals, his heart heavy. Power could save them, but it could also doom them. Wisdom was slower, quieter, but it guided without destroying. At last, Omar stepped forward and placed his hand on the blue crystal. "Humanity must choose wisdom. Only then will power be safe in our hands." The crystal flared with light, filling the library. The red crystal dissolved into dust, and the shelves vanished. They were back in the hall once more. The golden arch dimmed. All three arches were gone now. The trials were complete. From the ceiling of the hall, a deep light poured down, surrounding them in warmth. A voice filled the air, the voice of the pharaoh. You have proven yourselves. Courage, unity, and wisdom. Humanity is worthy to receive what I left behind. Go now to the final chamber. The gift awaits you. The floor beneath them shifted, revealing a new passage leading deeper into the earth. Omar lifted his lantern, his voice steady with pride. The pharaoh trusted us. We will not fail him. Together, the three stepped into the passage, their shadows stretching ahead. The chamber hummed louder, guiding them toward the heart of the secret. The new passage was narrow, its walls smooth and glowing faintly as if lit from within. Omar, Nadia, and Sami walked carefully, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The hum of the chamber was stronger now, deep and steady, almost like a heartbeat guiding them forward. At last, the passage opened into a vast chamber. Unlike the others, this one was circular with a dome ceiling covered in glowing symbols. The floor was made of black stone, polished so brightly it looked like still water. In the center of the room stood a great stone coffin, larger than any they had ever seen. Beside it rose a tall obelisk, covered in strange carvings that shimmered with light. The moment they stepped inside, the air grew heavy, and the chamber seemed to awaken. The symbols on the ceiling flared, casting golden light across the walls. A soft voice filled the air, not from the coffin or the obelisk but from everywhere at once. You have passed the trials, the voice said. Now you shall hear my warning. Omar's breath caught in his chest. He knew that voice. It was the pharaoh, the same voice that had spoken in the visions. The obelisk brightened, and an image appeared above it. A figure of the pharaoh stood tall, his eyes glowing like stars. Around him appeared images of pyramids, rivers, and cities. But soon the images changed. Strange ships filled the sky, unlike anything humans had ever built. They were vast, glowing with strange energy, their shapes curved and sharp at the same time. The pharaoh's image raised his hand. Long ago, we were not alone. From beyond the stars came those who sought to rule. They arrived with fire and shadow, seeking to make earth their own. The images shifted. Now the sky was filled with dark ships raining fire upon cities. People fled as pyramids and temples burned. Shadows of tall, thin beings with glowing eyes walked among them. Nadia's hand went to her mouth. They were invaded. The pharaoh's voice continued. They were stronger than us, but we had something they did not. Unity. We joined together, tribe and tribe, heart and heart. With courage, with wisdom, we pushed them back. They fled to the stars, but they swore to return. The images showed the enemy ships retreating into the blackness of space. Then the pharaoh's figure stood among his people, holding a glowing crystal above his head. This chamber, the pharaoh said, I built to keep the memory alive. For I knew that one day, when the stars turned again, they would return. Humanity must not forget. You must be ready. Sami's legs shook, and he whispered, they are coming back. The same ones who tried to take Earth before. Omar stared at the images, his heart pounding. The pharaoh prepared this place not as a tomb but as a message. A warning across time. The images changed again. They showed a vast star map, with Earth at the center. Lines of light stretched outward, pointing to distant stars. One of them glowed red, pulsing like a heartbeat. The pharaoh's image raised his hand once more. They sleep now in the red star. But soon it will awaken. When it does, their ships will return. Humanity must rise as one, or fall as slaves. The chamber grew silent for a moment, the images fading into the air. The pharaoh's voice softened. To aid you, I leave a gift. Not a weapon, but knowledge. The path to grow strong, to build, to unite. Use it with wisdom, or it will destroy you. The obelisk flared brighter, and a hidden panel at its base slid open. Inside lay a crystal, glowing softly with blue light. It pulsed gently, like a living heart. Omar stepped forward slowly, his hands trembling. This is what he left behind. The gift of knowledge. Nadia's eyes shone with wonder. It could hold secrets of energy, medicine, maybe even space travel. This could change everything. Sammy hesitated. Or it could destroy us. If the wrong people use it, we may bring ruin upon ourselves before the enemy even returns. Omar lifted the crystal carefully. It was warm in his hands, humming with a soft vibration. He felt as if it was alive, aware of him. The pharaoh's voice echoed again. Guard it well. Share it only when the world is ready. And remember courage, unity, wisdom. These alone will decide your future. The chamber dimmed, and the voice faded. The coffin remained sealed, the obelisk silent once more. The crystal in Omar's hands glowed steadily, as if waiting. For a long moment, none of them spoke. The weight of the pharaoh's warning pressed on them like stone. Finally, Omar broke the silence. We cannot tell the world at once. They will fight over it, seek to use it for power. We must protect it until the time is right. Nadia nodded slowly. But we cannot hide it forever. Humanity must be prepared before the enemy returns. Sammy looked pale. And what if they come sooner than we expect? What if the Red Star awakens tomorrow? Omar closed his hand around the crystal, his eyes steady. Then we will be ready. We will make the world ready. The Pharaoh trusted us to carry this burden. We cannot fail him. The three stood together in the chamber, their reflections shining in the polished black floor. The journey that had begun as an excavation was now a mission that stretched across time. Nadia looked at the glowing crystal and whispered, "This is not the end. This is the beginning." Omar turned toward the passage. "Then let us go. The world above waits. The secret cannot remain buried forever." They began to walk back through the passage, carrying the Pharaoh's gift with them. The hum of the chamber grew softer behind them, as if the ancient place was going back to sleep. But the weight of the warning stayed in their hearts. The stars above were no longer empty. Somewhere out there, beyond the black sky, the enemy waited. And now, humanity's time of choice had begun. When Omar, Nadia, and Sammy finally stepped out of the secret chamber, the desert night greeted them with cool air and a wide sky filled with stars. The silence of the ancient passage closed behind them, and the glow of the crystal in Omar's hand seemed brighter under the moonlight. They stood for a moment, staring at the horizon. The pyramids rose like dark giants in the distance, guardians of secrets too old for most to imagine. The weight of the Pharaoh's warning pressed on their hearts. The enemy was real, and one day it would return. Now they carried the only gift that could prepare humanity for that day. Nadia broke the silence first. "What do we do now?" Omar looked at the glowing crystal, its soft hum steady in his hand. "We protect it. We keep it safe until we know how to use it." The Pharaoh said it is knowledge, not a weapon. That means it will take time to understand. Sammy rubbed his arms, shivering despite the desert warmth. And what if someone finds out what we discovered? Do you think the world will let three people keep such a thing in secret? Omar's eyes grew hard. That is the danger. If greedy hands take it, humanity will fall before the enemy even arrives. We must be careful. They returned to camp quietly, hiding their excitement and fear. The workers and guards were asleep, unaware of what had been found deep beneath their feet. Omar placed the crystal inside a metal case, locking it carefully. The hum of the object still leaked through, a reminder of the power within. The next morning, sunlight washed over the desert. The team acted as if nothing had changed, but the truth burned in their eyes. Omar wrote notes in his journal, though he left out the full details. Nadia studied the carvings they had copied, whispering translations under her breath. Sammy watched the horizon, alert for anyone who might grow suspicious. Days passed, and whispers began to spread among the workers. Some claimed they had heard strange sounds from the chamber. Others spoke of lights under the sand. Rumors spread quickly, and soon officials from the city arrived, asking questions. Omar kept calm. "We found carvings, passages, and chambers. Important for history, yes, but nothing beyond what you expect in a burial site." The officials accepted his words, though their eyes lingered on the crates of artifacts. Nadia and Sammy exchanged worried glances. They knew that if the truth ever slipped out, governments and powerful groups would descend upon them. One night, as the three sat around the fire, Nadia leaned close. "We cannot stay here. Too many eyes are watching now. We must take the crystal away before someone discovers it." Omar nodded. "I agree. Tomorrow we pack the site and leave. The world is not ready for this knowledge. It will only bring conflict if revealed too soon." Sammy frowned. "But where will we take it? Where can it be safe?" Omar thought for a long time. "Somewhere far from power, somewhere no one will think to look. And we will guard it until the world is ready." The following days were tense. They closed the excavation and sent the workers home. The officials left as well, convinced the dig was finished. Finally, with the desert once more silent, Omar, Nadia, and Sammy buried the entrance to the secret chamber, sealing it beneath heavy stone. Only they knew the truth of what lay hidden below. When all was ready, they left the desert and returned to the city. Omar carried the crystal with him, wrapped in cloth and hidden inside his bag. Every step of the journey felt heavy with danger, as if unseen eyes were watching. At night, when they rested, Omar would hold the crystal and feel its warmth. Sometimes it flickered with images, star maps, shapes of ships, fragments of knowledge he could not yet understand. He realized the pharaoh had been right. This was not a weapon, but a guide. A seed of wisdom meant to grow when the time was right. Months passed. They settled in a quiet town near the edge of the desert, away from curious eyes. Omar taught at a small school, Nadia continued her studies in ancient languages, and Sammy worked as a builder. Outwardly, their lives were simple. In secret, they gathered each night to study the crystal. Slowly, patterns revealed themselves. The crystal showed designs of energy far beyond human science. It revealed ways to build machines that healed instead of harmed, ways to grow food in barren lands, ways to unite people through shared strength. But the crystal also showed warnings. Each gift came with danger if used for greed. One evening, as Omar traced the glowing patterns, Nadia whispered, "This could change everything. No more hunger, no more sickness. But if it falls into the wrong hands, wars will follow." Sammy nodded. "That is why we must be its keepers. We cannot reveal it until humanity is ready to stand together." That was the pharaoh's warning. Omar closed the case gently, his voice steady. "Then we will wait. Even if it takes our whole lives, we will guard this knowledge until the day humanity needs it most." Years passed, and the three kept their secret. The world above continued as always, with struggles and triumphs, with hope and fear. Few knew that beneath it all, the future of humanity rested in the hands of three ordinary people who had walked into an ancient chamber and heard the voice of a pharaoh. Sometimes, at night, Omar would step outside and look at the stars. Among them, one red star burned faintly, a reminder of the threat that waited beyond. He would grip the case holding the crystal and whisper, "We are ready. When you return, we will not fall." The pharaoh's words echoed in his memory. Courage, unity, wisdom. Omar knew that these were not just lessons from the past. They were the key to survival, the key to victory. The story of the pharaoh's secret chamber would remain hidden for now, but one day it would rise again, just as the pharaoh had planned. And when the stars turned and the enemy returned, humanity would face them not with fear but with strength born from its own spirit. For the gift was never truly the crystal. The gift was the reminder that humanity, united, could overcome anything. Omar, Nadia, and Sammy had become the keepers of that gift. And they swore to guard it until the day the world was ready.